Hello, it's 𝙲𝚘𝚙𝚒𝚘 here, and in this week's chapter of One Piece 1081, the 10th Titanic Captain Kuzan, we got hit with a lot of new interesting information as well as new character dynamics. And all due to some good old competition with the chapters coming out so early now, I figured it'd be a great time to kind of get back into doing some quick review and analysis of the most recent chapters, so here we go. And for this chapter, I have to start with the cover page because I know that this seems to be like a Shonen Jump mandated cover page where all of the artists for Shonen Jump have drawn their main characters of their series in cat suits. Well, for One Piece and Ichiro Oda in particular, it's not really a joke. And you can see on the cover of the Shonen Jump that the One Piece O and the I is always replaced by Luffy's body whenever we see the logo in the actual One Piece series and covers of the volumes. And that's actually because Luffy is a catfish. I'm not going to go too much into the deep end here because I have future videos kind of coming out with way more proof about all this stuff. But Luffy is what's known as a walking catfish. In real life, in our world, there are actually catfish that can walk on dry land between marshes and rice paddies and all sorts of stuff like that. And they really only come in two different colors. They're either all black or they're all white. And in Japan in particular, these are used to create a perfect ecosystem known as a rice-fish system between the fish, rice for rice paddies, and the humans farming them. All three of them combine to make a perfectly cohabitable ecosystem where the fish, the catfish, actually clean out the rice paddies for the humans to use, and they eat all the bacteria and all that stuff. And the humans are able to cultivate and farm the rice for human consumption. And I believe that in the One Piece world, this is being used for the entire series, and Luffy is kind of maybe a genetically altered being, which in my opinion would kind of count as being a angel, you know, created by God for a purpose, something along those lines, but ultimately to cleanse the One Piece world. And I think that Luffy is doing that. Now, in this chapter, we also see Garp, who I think was the previous one to do that. And these rice paddies, nowadays, they use genetically modified catfish to do it. But originally, way back in the past, they actually used carp to perform the same task. Carp and Garp, these connections should be kind of obvious. But like I said, I'll have more on this in future videos coming up. And since this is actually the final arc of One Piece, Oda is really going crazy with all of the clues. And on the first page, the cover spread that we get, the nice color cover spread where everyone's sleeping, we get Sanji reading a book that has a hilariously misspelled form of cooking, cocking. Well, I released a short yesterday about this, but I don't actually think it's a total joke by Oda. Cocking means the hunting of gamecocks, or the hunting of birds. And if you watch my channel long enough, and if you've talked to my great friend Elson, you'll know that I believe that the ancient kingdom is actually the 𝙲𝚘𝚙𝚎𝚛 kingdom, which can translate to the chicken wing kingdom, the birdman kingdom, all that kind of stuff, mainly revolving around birds. Now, the bird kingdom thing, wings can also be fins, it could be fishmen, air people, flying fishmen, whatever, all that kind of stuff. But this book here is a big clue to what the Straw Hats are ultimately being used for, unbeknowingly to them, which is they're being tracked to find this ancient kingdom. And once they get there, I believe it's probably going to be through the Straw Hat or through the Adam Wood ship, the 𝙲𝚘𝚙𝚒𝚘𝚗, that they will be tracked to this ancient kingdom and be used very much in the same way that Sacagawea was used to kind of track through and navigate through America, and ultimately the people that she was helping would eventually come back and kind of, you know, destroy, conquer, and eradicate the Native Americans. I think that that's kind of what the Straw Hats are doing. Now that they know that, but I think that's what's going on here. And it's all a big plot to get to pretty much find a way to this ancient kingdom. Now, who exactly is actually plotting this? Maybe it's Shanks, maybe it's the world government, maybe it's Emu. Who actually knows? But all I do know is that one of the major kind of fun clues about this is that the East Blue is known as the Sea of Schemes, and I believe that everything in the first bunch of the manga, especially chapter 1, is all kind of a plot to get Luffy on this journey, which will result in finding this hidden birdman kingdom. And the last thing I'll say about this cover spread is that it's kind of known now that a lot of the clues before the Gear 5 reveal were contained in these cover spreads where Luffy's sleeping. Well, since the Gear 5 thing, he hasn't really been shown sleeping much. This, I think, is kind of the first one since then. And I think that all of these characters sleeping is a huge clue to that there being something hidden behind all of them, lying in waiting to be awoken, whether that's good or bad, in each of these characters. Now, I think there's lots of stuff going on with Robin and Nami and the rest of the crew that's not pictured here. But for now, I'll just say that I think there's lots more reveals and awakenings coming in the series, especially with these characters here. And now let's get on to the actual chapter. And if I haven't lost you already, this this is a great opportunity for me to ask you to please, please, please subscribe. We just passed 500 subscribers. That is so cool. I cannot do this without you guys, and my next goal is 1,000. So please like, share, and comment on the video, and subscribe. Thank you. And One Piece chapter 1081 starts off by kind of confirming something that we all pretty much knew from like a decade ago, and that was that Kuzan has actually become the 10th Titanic captain of the Blackbeard Pirates. That's Mr. Pie jumping in here just to say that if you didn't know that, well, you're a very special individual. And you should subscribe to more YouTube videos to watch. And this chapter picks off right where the last one ended, with the aftermath of Garp's Galaxy Fist attack thing. Now I find this whole conversation between Kuzan and Garp to be very interesting, because Garp makes a huge mention here once again of kind of hating that he's getting older and that his body's getting weaker. And I'll talk about this much more in my next video coming out on Tuesday. But I believe that Garp might be in the process of shopping for a new body. And I do wonder if the reason he's so gung-ho about Kobe is because Kuzan has eaten the devil fruit and that he no longer wants that body, or maybe that body has too many souls in it to inhabit for whatever Garp has going on, and has maybe shifted his sights towards inhabiting Kobe's body in the future. But like I said, I'll talk about that much more in my next video on Tuesday. We get also probably one of the greatest views of Garp's ship that we've actually seen in the series proper, and it's this ship with a dog bone. Now, this ship kind of holds pretty much half the clues for what Garp really is, which I will go into my video on Tuesday with. But for this one, it's very prominent that he holds a bone in his mouth, that the figurehead of the ship is a dog with a bone in its mouth. Now, firstly, that should bring to mind Luffy's positioning on the chapter 100 cover spread as well as the chapter 1000 cover spread, where I know we all kind of see as, oh yeah, Luffy's eating meat. Well, more importantly, he's actually physically holding a bone. And I know that kind of seems like a counterpoint to what I was saying earlier about Luffy being a catfish, but the idea that he's a catfish who's been fooled to be a sea dog is a very real thing, which I will get to, like I said, in future videos. But this bone thing is very interesting because the phrase "like a dog with a bone" is used to talk about how someone is super stubborn or persistent, relentless or dogged. And symbolically, it can be used to show someone who won't stop until they've finished dealing with something. They will not quit until they've solved a problem. And I think for both Luffy and Garp, that problem is, you know, kind of cleansing the world of evil or wrongdoers and stuff like that. Now, I don't know if either of them really know they're doing that or that's exactly what their purpose is, but the ultimate completion of their goals, I believe, will result in this. Now, both of those things might result in the world ending, but we'll talk about that in other videos. As far as this chapter goes, I'm very pleased to find out that Kuzan is not a spy for the Marines or sword or anything like that, and he seems to legitimately and genuinely be with the Blackbeard Pirates for his own reasons. And Blackbeard even says as much in this chapter, commenting how every single person in the Blackbeard Pirates is out for their own agenda, which I think is super huge, because last chapter we heard that Blackbeard wants to get certified by the world government and become a kingdom of the world government, which really does not make a lot of sense to me. In fact, kind of Blackbeard's whole agenda since the time skip hasn't really made a ton of sense to me. And I've heard the idea that maybe Blackbeard is trying to be invited to the reverie and then using that opportunity to take Imu's body or place, which I just don't really buy, because one, he really mistimed this one. It seemed like Blackbeard kind of had perfect timing before the time skip, and since his timing is totally shit. And we also last chapter learned that Blackbeard didn't really know what sword was, so something like that for him not to have knowledge about, to me, really makes it highly doubtful that he knows about Imu, perhaps the greatest kept secret in the One Piece world. But that's okay, because I really don't think that there's a whole lot that Blackbeard's doing that he actually knows why he's doing it. I'm not going to get into all the specifics about what I think is inside Blackbeard, but I definitely think that he's gathering the most powerful fruits and users and all that stuff in the entire One Piece world to be used by someone else, basically becoming a bag that holds the magical fairy dust, so to say. That Blackbeard is the captain of all of these powers, and he's essentially delivering them to someone else, who will then take all those powers and use them for themselves. Now, I'm not saying that Blackbeard knows that, but I think it might be what he's doing, regardless. And I know that sounds really crazy, but one of the big clues, and it works for all the manga, especially with big pirate crews, is look for the character who is sitting down. There is a thing known as the Fisher King, and they're always presented as sitting down, and in the One Piece world, Oda's been using that as a huge clue for who's really in charge and pulling the strings behind stuff. When we meet the Blackbeard pirates in Marineford, notice that Lafayette is sitting down. Now, Lafayette is also the member of the Blackbeard Pirates who I think is right outside Egghead Island. I like the idea that Lafayette could be Hattori, the parrot that Rob Lucci has, but I ultimately don't think that that's actually what's going on, but I do think that he's outside in this ship right outside Egghead Island. And for more on Blackbeard and Lafayette's hidden agendas and roles, you guys will check out this video, which I'll leave a link for in the description. And during this flashback scene, we actually get more information about this, the man marked by flames, from Lafayette, who, like I said, I think knows much more and is playing much more than what's presented at the surface. But we find out that this man is supposedly in a all-black ship and he controls whirlpools, so that you can't get near him. Now, the only person I can really think of that seems to ride in a black ship is Shanks. I think it's a very real possibility considering that his scar looks an awful lot like Luffy's scar as far as being colored in pink and not really having the stitching scars like Luffy has from his face. And I do believe that being deemed worthy by Shanks and essentially being chosen by him does play a huge role in who will find the One Piece, but I will get to that in a few videos from now. I think that this whirlpool idea is very interesting because I actually kind of really wonder how close was Luffy to this person at the start of the manga in chapter 2 when he was dragged into that humongous whirlpool. Just food for thought.
Well, no, we ain't fine. But I always say the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence.
What?
Simply because you don't have evidence that something does exist does not mean that you have evidence that something doesn't exist.
What?
And of course, this chapter ended with Bepo saving Law from the Blackbeard attack that we last saw him enduring. And I think that the most interesting thing that's going on here, going along with what I said earlier about Blackbeard, is he doesn't seem to super be interested in Law's devil fruit. At the very least, he doesn't seem to be wanting to use the Op Op no Mi in the same way that Doflamingo does, which I think was to body snatch Emu, because her body may hold very special abilities that only she can use that have devastating effects in the One Piece world. And for more on that, you have to check out this video. The title's kind of misleading, but you'll see why once you watch the video. I'll place a link in the description for that one as well. I think that pretty much wraps up this review for the third 10 out of 10 chapter in the One Piece world. I guess I wouldn't totally rate them 10 out of 10 because we haven't seen the Straw Hats, so to me, without the Luffy and company, you can only really get as high as a 9, but these last 3 chapters have been fantastic, and we're full throttle, pedal to the metal about getting to this end of the story, I think, or at least, within the next 4 years. And with that, my name is 𝚘𝚙𝚒𝚘𝚡. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't, because my video that's coming out on Tuesday is going to blow your freaking mind.
I never died.
Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you all later. Bye-bye.